All right. Okay, so welcome everyone to our first virtual EDE program career chat. We heard from a lot of students that there's a lot of interest in business and entrepreneurship. I guess we've heard from the comments and the surveys that students are interested in working for themselves and building out their own companies. So we have a really exciting panel today. We have several panelists here with us, and we have a short video as well that we'll send out and show a piece of during our panel today about entrepreneurship. So we're gonna start off by having each of the panelists here introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about themselves, their company, and what kind of company it is, so what type of work their company does. And then once everyone's introduced themselves, I'll ask a few follow-up questions, and then we'll turn to some student questions. So I think perhaps we'll start just in the order of the slides. So Chelsea, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Chelsea Wiltsey, and I'm the owner of a company called Seasoned and Growing Resume Writing Services, and I'm a certified resume writer and career coach. So my focus is helping frustrated job seekers navigate through the job search process. So I do resume writing, career coaching, I do mock interviews, and I help with teaching people how to network both in person and on online platforms. So that's my company.
Great, thanks so much. Jeff.
So hi everyone, my name is Jeff Key. I'm the owner of Infinity Enterprises. So my business focuses on website and social media design for small businesses and nonprofits. So sometimes I have clients who approach me, they need to create a new website. They may need to update their current website. With everyone working from home these days and doing a lot more things digitally, things have been pretty busy for me the last couple of weeks, but it's good to be able to give people advice and steer them in the right direction around those areas.
Wonderful. And Larice.
Hello, my name is Larice Brown, and I'm the founder of C-Track. And what we do is we help entry to mid-career professionals build their skills, showcase their talent, and navigate the tricky career ladder, which is not linear anymore. So clients come to me after they finish with Chelsea, so they finish the job hunt, they're in a job that they love, but they've been there for a year or two and they want to know, how do I get to the next level? So often I work with first-time managers or professionals that are ready to see what's next in their career at the same organization.
That's great. Thank you, guys. So with that, I want to jump into the first question, which I was hoping you guys could each talk a little bit about how you got interested in creating your own business. So what inspired you to want to start a business, and what drew you to this particular type of business? I don't know who would like to go first.
I'll go first.
Okay, great.
So my 3 areas of expertise are communication, education, and people. And I can see those patterns in the things that I studied in college. I did an individual major, public relations and public policy. But even more specifically, what I can say is I'm one of 6. I have 6 siblings, well, I have 5 siblings. And I was the first of my siblings to graduate from college. And I remember working really hard in college, graduating magna cum laude, and getting to the workforce and feeling like I worked that hard, but I didn't know what to expect. And so when I was 25, I went back to school for education, and it really gave me an understanding of the way education has shifted. And it also helped me to recognize that there was a growing conversation that, what is school for, and specifically, how do we prepare students today for the workplace? So that was my push into entrepreneurship. It was knowing that I loved education. There are benefits to the model. At the same time, what can we do to bring career skills more in the center of it?
Great. Jeff or Chelsea, you want to jump in?
Sure. So I think my interest in kind of establishing a business goes back all the way to middle school, high school. I always had a really deep interest in technology. I was always that kid who was interested in the newest gadget, wanted to know how things worked. And so even when I was in college, I was a political science major. but I always hung out with a lot of people who were in computer science and engineering, and was still kind of involved in that heavily, kind of teaching myself on the side, trying to design websites in my spare time. And I've worked in the nonprofit sector for about 15 years now, and always found myself at my different jobs being kind of the tech person. If we needed something updated on the website or a new website designed, I was the person who was volunteering for it. And I'll start to see a need at other organizations similar to mine. So, for a couple of years, I thought about starting a business, kind of did some research, made sure that I was getting some training and experience doing different projects. And then a couple of years ago, decided to actually formally take that step and start my business.
And Chelsea?
Yes. So I guess for me, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit just because I've been non-traditional, I'm really independent, and I love taking action without going through a lot of hoops to be able to do it. And in my professional career before this, I actually managed a lot of different teams, so I do like leading different initiatives. And I guess more than that, I like having my hands in a lot of different things. So I like knowing the business aspect. I like having my hands in marketing and web development and networking and finance. And with my own business, I'm able to do all of that. And I just always wanted to help people. And careers is something that I know, like the back of my hand. And I've been able, before getting paid for this, I've been able to help a lot of family, friends, and colleagues get to where they want to be at in their careers. So I just thought it was a natural fit.
That's really great. I mean, hearing what you guys are saying too makes me think like, those of us in the nonprofit sector, sometimes I feel the same way, like you get to do your hands in like so many different things. You're not just like, I'm an accountant or just doing this all day long. It's like you're doing everything and it's kind of fun. And I guess starting your own business is very much that because it's all on your shoulders to build all the different elements of it. So that's really, I think that's really helpful. And maybe that's something that attracts a lot of people to this type of work, is having that flexibility and the ability to kind of do a lot of different things. Every day is probably quite different. With that in mind, I mean, I think something we hear from the students a lot is around like, how do you start it? So was there something that any of you studied in particular, like are there certain classes that you took that really were helpful in thinking through this, or business school or things like that? Or were there types of training or experiences that you had that helped you develop skills that would be helpful for you to do this? And also, I think too, and this is like a caveat to that, also, you can't build it on your own. So are there people that help you along the way that you think are also vital to the process of starting your own company? And whoever wants to jump in.
Oh, Jeff, are you going to go? I'll let Jeff go and I'll go next.
So I got a really great tip and word of advice from someone who I knew who had gone through the process. So they were about 2 or 3 years into starting their own business. They actually told me about a program offered through Rising Tide Capital. So they have a community business academy program. And, if I could kind of be transparent, I spent some time getting a plan in place. I kind of thought I had all my bases covered. But like a lot of things, until you are actually starting the business and running the business, you don't quite know what to expect. And so I remember going into that program, and it was kind of in a group. So there were a lot of other people who were also starting businesses, and there was a coach. And we really just went step by step through everything, you would need to have in place to run your business. And it turned out I had a lot of boxes checked. But it was really good going through that process because there were some blind spots in my plan to launch and, some of the assumptions I'd made that I was able to become aware of going through that program. And there were still some growing pains just getting the business off the ground. But I'd say if you have someone in your network or you can go to a program like that, that's great. But I think another thing is if you can connect or go to a networking event, just talk to people who are already in business. Most of them are more than happy to share advice. and maybe some things that they did that they would do differently. So I'd say just get as much information as you can before launching, and make sure you have all your bases covered. Because you'll face difficulties anyway, but being able to plan pretty thoroughly in advance is important.
Elsie, you wanted to jump?
Yes. So I think for me, my story is kind of a long one because I never thought that I'd end up being a resume writer and career coach. But one thing that I always tell my clients and people that I work with is figure out what your superpower is. Like, what is the one thing that you're amazing at and people constantly tell you that you're good at? And once you figure that out, figure out if you're passionate about it, and then build off of there. So I started writing resumes in my early teens, whenever we were first able to start getting jobs. I wrote all of my classmates' resumes, and then I started writing them for family and friends, like grown adults, and they were getting better jobs. And I continued to do that all throughout college. Any of my classmates in college, I wrote their resumes. Coworkers who hated their jobs, I wrote theirs. And one day, someone finally said, "You do this, and you're really good at it, so you should probably charge for this." And after I thought about it, I was like, oh, well, let me see if there's anyone else out there doing it. And I started to do research, and I found a lot of different associations that offer training and educational opportunities and just networking opportunities. So I always tell people, once you discover what it is you want to do, find your tribe and make sure that you find mentors and colleagues that can help lift you up in that same atmosphere. So,
Maurice, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so to answer your question about how do you just get started, what's helpful is, especially when you jump into entrepreneurship, you feel like you have to be at the level of everyone else who's already doing it in your industry. But what was helpful for me is that before I knew how to build a curriculum, I knew how to outline a workshop. And it's helpful. So, for example, before anyone in music knows how to do an album, they just know how to record a song or maybe just write the lyrics. Or before you do an app, you know how to do the wireframe. So I would say the most helpful thing you can do or have a thought partner help you figure out is what is, they call it the minimum viable product in entrepreneurship, but what is that one thing you can do? And in the case of what both Chelsea and Jeff are sharing, where can you get practice at it, right? It doesn't always have to start with immediately going to sales, but where can you get that feedback from someone that's like, actually, there's a result here. So I would say if students can think like that, minimum viable product, small level, who can I go to give me feedback? That'll get them out of their heads of, is this good? Is this valuable? And the other piece is the Small Business Association has SCORE, and they have an arm in New York and Newark and all across the nation. And SCORE is great for both the classes that they offer because they are, actually they're reduced for students and they're low cost, so most of them are under $49. But they're also great because you can have a mentor. And the cadence of the mentor, how frequently you meet with them is up to you. So that's two things that I found to be helpful. SCORE, Small Business Association, and then always thinking of what is the smallest thing right now that I can test and who can give me feedback on it.
And I think too, you know, interesting hearing your stories because I found like there's a lot of similarities in how you guys got started in what you're doing, you know, identifying what your passion is, identifying what your superpower is. I love that. And figuring out then also the element of monetizing it. At a certain point when you realize that you do have an expertise, like how do you turn that into a business, I think is really key. But I also was struck that several of you have started thinking about this like in high school, or like you started to realize like as young as, you know, high school, early teens, that you had this expertise. So for students that are in high school currently, what are things they should be doing now? And I know Maurice mentioned a couple of good resources. What are experiences they should be having, things they should be doing, skills they should be practicing or building now that could prepare them to become great, you know, entrepreneurs and business leaders? Whoever wants to start.
I'll go because it's one of my favorite questions. So over 90%, if not 95% of any interaction you have in business will be based on your ability to communicate. And what you're constantly doing is you're expressing ideas and you're communicating recommendations, you're problem solving. And so what I would say is I did a lot of public speaking in high school. I was not only a part of student council, but just as a part of clubs. And it's helpful to build the practice of expressing your ideas. When you get into entrepreneurship, you are an advocate of your services and yourself and your organization. So being in any position where you have to, some people call it pitching, but where you at least have to communicate your value to an audience will give you a comfort level with that. That'll be helpful for the long term. So that's one thing. However you can communicate, strengthening your ability to communicate, and then I would also say building your leadership skills. And when I say that, I specifically mean what opportunities do you have to collaboratively problem solve with other people, but also to be in a group where you don't do everything. You identify what your strengths are, and you identify what other strengths are. So communicating, expressing your ideas, pitching, advocating for yourself and what you do, and couple that with when you get into a group situation, can you problem solve collectively, and can you be clear on what you do well and what others do well, because a common pitfall that even I experienced in entrepreneurship is you don't want to go at it alone. You know, you do want to think about how you can bring other people with you, even if it's not necessarily as your employees, but how you can keep yourself from being stagnant in your own thinking.
Jeff or Chelsea?
Yeah, so I'm going to give advice based off of my personal experience. I remember when I was in high school, I was a huge enabler and I was a people pleaser. So for the most part, I was always trying to give the right answer and please others and just do what they recommended that I do. And I know whenever I was in high school, it was always pushed for us to go the safe route, like be a doctor, be a lawyer, just do something that everybody else is doing, but it may not be what you're passionate about and what you care about. So once you figure out what your passion is, just go for it. And you will have a lot of people that say, hey, that's not going to work. And it is okay. Like, everyone can have their opinion, but at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're doing and going after something that you love, something that you care about. And after that, everything will fall in place and the money will come. And for everything that you think is out, just remember that there's a support group out there for it. So find your tribe and go for it, and don't waste time.
And Jeff?
So I think something that I really struggled with, and I had to kind of get out of my comfort zone when I started my business, was I do a lot of work volunteering with students around kind of professional development programs now, and I'm always impressed by students who kind of have the confidence and are proactive in approaching people, introducing themselves, but being very open about what they're seeking. I remember, you know, being in high school, being in college, and being so intimidated whenever I went to any professional event where it was like, I'd see someone who was, you know, someone I wanted to connect with, someone who was on a career path that I was interested in, and I would immediately shut down and be like, I don't even want to go up and say hello to that person because I'm just a college student. They're way more successful than me. What are we even going to talk about? Like, I have nothing to offer this person. And now that I'm at a different place in my career, when I am at events and I meet students who are there, and sometimes these aren't kind of student-focused networking events. These are students who took the initiative to come to an event where there's professionals who are already in the field. I see those students walk away with internship opportunities, these great networking connections. So I think you have to have that comfort level in being vulnerable and being able to approach people who are maybe at a different level than you, but know that, you know, you have something great to offer, that you can have conversations with those people. And I think if you're professional and you're good at communicating and you are confident, that people will be willing to help you. I can almost count on one hand the number of times that I've seen a student approach in a professional way, kind of connect with someone, ask for their contact information to follow up, and that person wasn't like 100% willing. to make that connection. And from there, being able to, I think, follow up. That's the other thing, that once I got over the step of being able to talk to people, then I wasn't great at following up to connect with the people. So if you get someone's contact information and you have a very specific reason for reaching out to them, you do want to be respectful of their time, but be willing to make that ask. You won't always get an immediate yes, but I think none of those doors will open if you're not willing to make that ask. Even though sometimes I know it feels like a big step where you feel like you're bothering that person, that's the only way you're going to get those opportunities that are going to help you advance.
Yeah, follow up. That's so great. Because how many times have we all like given our card to someone and they say, oh, I'll send you a message, and then you never hear anything, and it's like, we're here to help. Yeah, that's great. We've had a few questions coming in the chat to me, so let me throw one out to you guys right now. And these get onto more of the nitty gritty, I think. One is, how do you make your business unique when competing against other businesses similar to yours? Who's got a thought?
I guess I'll answer that.
Sure.
So whenever I first started, I was really worried about everybody else's business and what they were doing, and I was worried about the competition. But at the end of the day, you're not necessarily selling your business, you're selling you, because people are going to buy from you, and what can you offer that's a little bit different than what everyone else is? What kind of experience can you give them? So just think about that. I know that you have unique qualities and traits that are different from other people, so focus on your race.
Jeff or Luis, have either of you faced that dilemma, and how have you approached it?
So I think one thing that I struggled with, focusing on website design, I mean, you have people who are looking for websites for a whole range of things. Sometimes they're nonprofits, sometimes they're small businesses, sometimes they're large corporations. I think when I first started out, I was very much focused externally, like who else is doing this? How much are they charging? What services do they offer? Let me go on and look at their websites. And then I think narrowing it down to what I really wanted to focus on. So the clients that I, got the most satisfaction out of working with, and designing websites for, what I could do well, what was manageable for me, and then being authentic with people. So every now and then I meet someone or I get introduced to someone, and it's from one of my contacts will say, I know this person is starting a business, or their organization might need a new website. And instead of trying to make every person I meet kind of fit into my business model, I've learned to approach conversations and just ask people, what challenges are you facing? What services are you looking for? Sometimes it's a fit for me. If it's not, like, I actively refer people to other people that I know who design websites that are a better fit for them. And I think the unexpected result of that, some of my best clients that I have now are not people that I met directly. Like, I may have referred someone I met to another website designer, and they have a friend who's like, oh, I had this great connection and this person actually helped me out, even though I didn't end up doing business with them. But, in our conversation, I found out that this is, the type of project he focuses on. I think it would be a good fit for you. So I think being kind of authentic and knowing like what you do best is really, really important, in making yourself stand out from other companies who may do similar work.
Yeah. What I would add is be okay with not knowing your brand or how you stand out in the beginning, because that question can be so heavy that you won't even jump into the race. You'll be like, someone else is already doing this, and so I can't do it. So for me, that's a question I can answer more adequately now than ever, and I've been doing this work for 6 years. And so I would say if anyone's like, so one, as both Chelsea and Jeff were mentioning, today's entrepreneurial landscape calls for you to understand yourself, and that's what your audience is going to respond to. So anyone who wants to be in business today, just understand your story. It doesn't mean you have to tell everything, but what is it about you and your story that your audience can relate to? But I would also say it's okay for your story to evolve. And if you find yourself in the beginning just doing the work that you are in business for, that is okay, because the more you stay in the work, the more you're going to get feedback about via testimonials or comments that people make, or referrals that you get on why someone is sending business to you. And that's the kind of information that's going to be useful for helping you stand out.
Great. Okay, we have some questions that have to do with the perhaps the most important and scariest part of all this, which is money. So where do you get the money, or where would a student get money to fund the business when they're so young, whether in high school or college? Where do you go for money?
So I will say, personally, I did not go this route, but I know, especially if you are kind of high school student, college student, there are grants out there. There are some community development organizations and nonprofits that provide seed money. I know I was looking through some grants recently. The Office of Faith-Based Initiatives in New Jersey has a youth entrepreneurship program. So I kind of saw the details on that and was a little bit jealous, because I was like, they didn't have this when I was, in high school. This is like not free money. They expect you to kind of channel it into starting a business. But I'd say the other thing that was really valuable for me was stressing over this at the beginning. Like, okay, you start putting together the budget. Do I need to formally incorporate my business? Where am I going to get, the money to do this? Thinking through, do I need office space, a lot of other things? And I'd say that sort of depends on your business, but there are a lot of creative ways, I think, to start with less money than you would think up front. I know my initial numbers, I was having panic attacks and stress over where do I even come up with the money to do this? And it takes a little bit of research, but I think there are a lot of probably underreported ways to find funding for this. And to realize that when you're starting out, there's kind of doing the work. And then, one good piece of advice I got from someone who was 3 or 4 years into starting their business, they were like, when I started, I thought I needed a fancy office. Where was I going to meet my clients? I wanted a brand new computer. I wanted the high quality business cards. I wanted all these things. And they were like, once I got into the actual day-to-day of running my business, I realized some of that was important, but it wasn't as important as I thought for just doing the work. So, I think starting out, you have this idea of success of, I think you own a business or you start a business, obviously you want to make money, but being able to put off some of those initial things you might think you need to just start doing the work and figure out what's going to make you really successful. And a lot of those other things will come later on down the line.
That's some great advice.
And I agree with a lot of what Jeff is saying, but I would suggest first and foremost, come up with a business plan so that you have an idea of about how much money you do need. And there are grants out there, there's foundations out there that are willing to help you out, but you have got to have something on paper. You need to know what your vision is, what your mission is, what you're putting money towards, because there's a lot of components that goes into that. I would also recommend always tapping into your personal network, family and friends, because you would be surprised. People will support you, but you have to have a pretty clear vision and mission, and you have to be able to tell people this is what I plan to do. So that's again, knowing how to sell yourself, and that's good practice for starting off.
I'm going to say that you can probably find a prospective client on Craigslist. And that's a great way for, again, jumping in. And so 2 things. One, Craigslist is a marketplace. So truly, if you are looking to do, they have editing, music, there's a range of things. So I would say that's a great way to get practice and to jump in and to get just even thinking about sales, right? Okay, what can I do that people are in the market for getting sales for? I would also say think about how to self-fund in the sense of if you already have some kind of income coming in or even a summer job, think about how you can leverage that to get you started. If you're not able to get a grant or if you're not able to seek some kind of outside funding, I would also say, well, think of materials as well as money. So often we think of money and we're like, okay, I need to get money to get started. But really think about, if you're getting money, what is that money for, right? What are you, is it, like for me, for many people today, do you have access to the computer and the internet? And actually, I know that's a large conversation, especially for education, but do you have access to your phone? Do you have access to some kind of material where you can at least start to build and then jump in from there? So I would say, even if you don't have the money, think of the materials you need and how you could barter or ask people or trade kinds of things for that can get you going on your journey.
And just building on that question, I think we have one other question that kind of is related to that, which is a student who wrote, I know I want to start a business, but I don't have the resources, money, equipment, time, so I get discouraged. So what do I do when my dream is bigger than my means? And I think too, you know, on that question, like, how do you keep your encouragement up and how do you keep going? I mean, I don't want to like extrapolate from that question too much, but like, especially right now, I mean, it's kind of a discouraging time in the world for some people. And I guess for Jeff, you're seeing an increase in business, but like for some folks, maybe it's the opposite. So how do you stay encouraged when you don't have the resources, you don't have the time, you don't even know where to start, your dream is bigger than what you think you can do in that period of time, and how do you stay moving forward?
That's a great question. And I would say I felt the same way. It always feels really big when you have a vision or desire and you're like, I'm one person and I'm starting from the bottom. But I would say the best advice, and this is, I forget who said it, but the game of entrepreneurship is getting in line and then staying in line. Because truly, you know, you're going to start, you're going to encounter obstacles, you're going to have days when you're like, this is not, I feel like I should be further along, especially in comparison to others in my field. You're going to have things that you believe you're going to get a return on and you don't get any return on. You're going to have moments when you feel like you're running in circles or doing the same thing over and over again, but you're not moving forward. And I would say the trick is, the trick is to start, right? And the trick is, when you want to quit, remember how far you've come. And if you're in entrepreneurship, you're solving a problem. So remember the people that you're in service to, and that the longer you stay in it, the more people you can be in service to. And that's the motivation, I imagine, for most entrepreneurs. You get in it because you want to help people. And so if you start, you can help one person, but the longer you stay in it, the more people you can help. But whatever student asks that, please know that that's why everyone will sell you on mindset courses in entrepreneurship, right? Because it's how you think that keeps you in it. And you have to, and the reason why you stay in it is because you know there's someone that benefits from the work that you do. So I would say when you're visioning or imagining things, keep that top of mind. Who benefits from the work that you're doing?
Jeff or Chelsea?
And I completely agree with everything Marie said. So number one, keep in mind that entrepreneurship can be extremely lonely and extremely isolating. And that is why it's so important to build a network, have mentors, have people who are in the same field that you're in, because you won't think of everything. It's hard. You can't, especially if you haven't done it before. So have those conversations with mentors and people who are in your circle, and sometimes they can come up with an idea and help you out or say, hey, I face the same thing, so let me teach you how to walk through this. I know my mentors and colleagues mean everything to me, and they help me get through some rough days, because there are still days where I am very discouraged and I'm like, oh, I ran against this, I don't know how to get out of it, and I have people help me through it because they've been there. So make sure that you're not isolating yourself and get around people who can help.
Yeah, I think I would emphasize a point that Laurice made about mindset. I know when I was thinking about starting my own business, I talked to a couple people who I knew had gone down that path. And one of my good friends, I just remember him saying, like, you're going to start down this path. And he was like, you may not remember me saying this, but he's like, at some point, give me a call when you're ready to like quit and throw in the towel, because it will happen. Like at some point things may go well, but he said it's going to be a roller coaster. And I think one of the humbling things for me was probably in the first year or so starting my business. I felt like I had good technical skills. Like if you need me to design a website, I was technically able to do it, put the code together, I can get you the design you want. And I remember looking around and being like, why don't I have more customers? Like, what is going wrong that I'm not, getting more people to sign on for projects? And I have a mentor that I'm very close with, and was talking it through with them. And they said, well, okay, pretend like I'm one of your customers or potential customers. I want you to pitch to me like you would pitch to a customer. So I go through the whole process. And at the end, there's kind of like awkward silence. And I know them well enough to know that some feedback was coming my way that was going to be difficult for me to hear. And they mentioned, during the pitch, you kept talking about what services you provide and how you go through the design process. He was like, at no point did you stop and like ask me like what I need as a client. And he said, I've known you a long time. I have no doubt that you're good at what you do, but he was like, your, business is not really focused on you. Like your client is operating from the standpoint of, I have problems, I have challenges. Like, how are the services you provide going to be able to help me? And to know that you have to make this more of a conversation and less of just a pitch of you talking about what you can do. And I thought about it, and I wanted to push back, but then I was kind of replaying the pitch in my head, and I was like, they're exactly right. So I think running your own business is a process of self-discovery. There will be some things that you're really good at. There will be some things that you discover that are not your strengths, that you need to work on, that you need to improve in. And I think keeping that mindset is really important. So when you hit those tough times, those, it feels like a dead end, you can take a step back, and whether it's with yourself or with people you trust, like figure out a new route, a new strategy so that you can continue to build your business.
That's really great. So I think all of this input has been so great and such great advice. We have one other panelist who couldn't physically be with us during this time. I'm going to just turn to her slide. Amelia Childs is a founder of a restaurant. And so with the coronavirus, she normally would be flexible during the day, but she unfortunately had to let go a lot of her staff, and they're still serving lunch as a delivery and pickup. And so she is running her lunch right now, but she did send us a video. So this is her contact information, and what I'm going to try to do here, if I can figure out how to do it, is show you a little bit of her video. So can you guys see the video? You can see YouTube? Okay, good. Okay, so I'm just going to play a little bit of this, and then I'm going to send the full link out with the recording so that students can watch the rest of her video. So here is a little bit of her video.
Hi guys, I'm Amelia Childs. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so sorry I wasn't able to come to the live event. The little recording I did can talk to you a little bit about my business and how I achieved it. So I'm here right now in my store, the Creepy Fairy Cafe. We're located in Oakland Hills, Massachusetts, and June will be our 3-year anniversary. A little bit about how I got started. I always like to start back at the beginning. I think it's the perfect place to start, given that you guys are in high school. That's really kind of where my story began. So I was in high school, and everyone was applying to college, and I got called down to principal's office. When I got there, my guidance counselor was there, my parents were there, and the conversation was, you don't think this is going to get into college, so what's our game to do? My grades were not great. I graduated high school with a 2.1 GPA, and I was interested in things. I was in Amnesty International, I was head of the Environment Club, I was doing stuff, but school just wasn't my thing. Homework didn't really do it for me, I guess. So anyway, my grades were bad, they didn't think I was going to college. I was really good at photography, really good, and I really followed that passion. I cared about things I was passionate about. So I was luckily able to get into school with a scholarship for my art. And so I got my BFA at Wellesley University in Cambridge. And as I was there, I was working a lot. I always had different jobs. I realized because, let's see, when did I graduate? I graduated in 2011, so my sophomore year was 2008 economics class. So it became really obvious to me that just having a degree wasn't going to be enough. I needed things in my resume too. So I started managing a small little offshoot of Nielsen surveys. So we were working at a movie theater. We were doing people surveys to figure out what they were kind of knowing from commercials they saw on TV, things like that. By 19 years old, I had 7 people I was in charge of, and things started going from there. I graduated school. I was hired out to work in marketing for a company called Fujifilm Cameras, marketing their cameras, and they were located in LA, and I was the only person here in Massachusetts working in the company. So I was making my own schedule, which is really cool, and I was managing a dark room. For those who don't know, I guess dark rooms don't exist anymore. It's kind of when you use film on the camera and stuff. So I needed something to do. I was awkward. I wasn't good at talking to people, so I got a little job at a coffee shop. I was working 10 hours a week. I was making $9 an hour, and I loved it. I had always loved it. I had always had this kind of fantasy about opening my own restaurant someday, but that's what it was. It was a fantasy. It wasn't something I thought I would do. Working there, I loved it. So I was working crazy hours. I told them, I'm considering going to find one of the bigger camera companies for marketing, and they really liked me working there. So they said, if you work for us full time is full time, not 35 hours a week. It's open and close 6 days a week. We will pay you a very decent salary to do that. So I did that for 2 years. I did it 6 days a week. I missed 1 day of work in 2 years. That was it. I was very dedicated, and I just took that time. I was working side by side with the owner to learn as much as I possibly could of it. From there, when I was about 22, I was very brash. I thought, I'm just going to try to buy it. I don't have any money. So what does someone do when they don't have any money? You go to a bank, right? So 8 banks later, no one wanted to give me any money, and I tried to get some investors, and that didn't work, but I still had my dream. And I said, I've worked as hard as I can at this coffee shop. I need something new, somewhere where I can grow a little more. So I was hired as general manager. Now it's taken me to, I was 24. Hired general manager for a company at a little juice bar. We had 1 location. I had 4 people on my staff, and they said, well, we need you to rewrite the menu, and we want to open some more locations, so we're going to put you in charge of that. At 24, which was a lot. And I just said, okay. I started working. I was working 7 days a week. I was working on average 90 hours a week. And 2 years later, at that little company, we had 3 juice bars, 36 people on my staff, and find it 4 other locations. I became junior partner in the company, and I was making pretty good money. But I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't feel like I wanted to continue working for other people all the time. I was general manager, so my ideas were important to the business, and it was all my menu, things like that. But there were still some ideas I didn't like when I would suggest something and people didn't always respond to it well. I was very young. I was a woman, and sexism definitely didn't hurt that. And so I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to start my own thing. So I got a phone call from some landlord asking me if I knew anyone who wanted to go into a store who was going to open so much manage it. And I said, you know what? I don't like my job. I'll just manage it. And he said, well, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you own it? And I said, I don't have any money. That's $25. So she put me in touch with some people who looked at my track record, my history of success, running other businesses, and they were able to invest in me. And that's how I opened the Rosencrantz Cafe. We were there for 2 years. It started off slow. I was the only person working behind the counter for the first 4 months, where I was able to afford to hire my own employees. And we went up from there. Within 8 months, we were a huge success. We were making lots of money, which was amazing and incredible, and I couldn't believe it, remembering all those times where I'd gotten to work at 4:30 by myself to be there all day to 7 p.m. just to try to make any kind of money. My business partner, however, it ended up not totally working out with him. I decided I wanted to branch off again. I wanted to make money. So I put the word out. I didn't ask anyone for money. I just said, this is what I'm doing. I need to move. This is what's going on. And again, people wanted to invest in me because they'd seen the progress I had made. When I opened Crate Berry, this year I I noticed that we weren't making the same money we were making before. And I, as an entrepreneur, as someone running their own business, the biggest thing you have to do is problem solve. Problem solving is the biggest thing. How do we do it? How do we cut back our expenses, rework our business model? So marketing was our biggest one. We had spent $16,000 the previous year on marketing. That wasn't sustainable. So what I did is I went online, I went on Instagram, I figured out different hashtags, different usernames, and I found one called Vegan Massachusetts. It wasn't vegan, so I took it. Vegan Massachusetts is now one of my Instagram handles. He had about 3,500 followers, which in the day of Instagram, that might not sound like that many. You know, when you have millions of followers, 100,000 followers, 3,500, that doesn't sound like a lot. What it actually is, it is a lot. Because what we're doing is we are targeting a very distinct audience in a very small area. So of those 3,500 people, over 90% are people following a plant-based diet and based in Massachusetts. So this not only allows me to market my business, because I've been a vegan for 15 years and my career is vegetarian, but market all these other small businesses in our community. And what happens from there is prior to the COVID-19 problem, the other businesses were actually paying me to help them with their marketing. So in essence, I went from spending $16,000 to market my cafe to actually being paid to market other people at the same time marketing myself. That's the kind of things that you do when you're a small business owner.
All right. So let me come back to you guys. All right, so there's a little bit more to that video, and I'll send that out when I send the recording out. But I wanted to play a little bit of that because I think she answered or talked to a lot of the questions that we discussed. And so I hope that was also nice to have a little bit of other feedback. So I know that we're running short on time, and I know that one of our panelists has to leave because she's got a meeting in a few minutes. So I just wanted to give her a chance to say any final last words. So Chelsea, if you had any last parting words you'd like to share before we leave you?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you for having me. I enjoyed being able to speak to the audience and give advice. And if you guys need any advice in the future, my email is listed above. I work with a lot of college students as well, so I kind of help them through, you know, getting their first job and launching out to the real world. So I'm here for support if you need it. And again, it was nice talking to everybody.
Thank you so much, Chelsea, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And then Jeff and Laurice, if you guys have any final words of wisdom or any last parting thoughts before we finish up.
Yeah, I'll go. So I would say you're not too young, and just to Chelsea's point earlier, no one gives anyone a template for entrepreneurship, so that means it's not really failing, it's really learning. It's, if we take a step back, we're like, I had no idea how to do this in the first place, so it's not that I got it wrong, but you know what, I know that this doesn't work anymore. So give yourself grace in that way, and also recognize that, as noted by what we're all experiencing right now with COVID-19, the world is rapidly changing, and entrepreneurship is problem solving. And what that means is that you're not too young to know how to solve a problem, and there's probably a new way to solve a problem that you know about that the rest of us have overlooked. So don't be afraid to jump in and communicate your ideas. You never know who can partner with you on that or support you in that.
Yeah, I think I would add in, I mean, a lot of my clients right now are going through a lot of difficulties. They're small businesses, they're nonprofits. I think all the challenges that COVID is presenting for everyone, most of my conversations these days are not around problems that people already know. It's, we're in a completely new world. We need to take all of our programming that we were doing in person, much like schools are doing, and saying, hey, how do we translate this and do it on Zoom? We used to do 90% of our business in store. That's not an option anymore. How do we shift that to an online platform? And, you know, no one out there really has models for this. And so there's uncertainty on the one hand, but if you are someone who's very creative, and I think in that way it can almost be an advantage to be a student because you don't have a lot of preconceptions about this is the way we've always done it. You may be able to come in and see a problem and just have a brand new way of looking at it. And a lot of the businesses that we all look at today as extremely successful, at one point, people looked at them and were like, you're way out there. I have a really good friend from college who is now retired because he used to bug all of us back when I was in college. You should be investing in this company, Netflix. Back then, Netflix was still mailing DVDs out, and Blockbuster was looking at Netflix going, we don't have anything to worry about with them. Like, they're this tiny company and they're sending DVDs through the mail. So a lot of times those ideas that you have that you may look at and say, well, I don't know if this will work, really just being able to take that step and try it out. And it doesn't need to be perfect the first time around. You're going to learn as you go, but don't kind of hesitate to try out that idea that you have, because every business starts out somewhere, and it's usually very small, and they operate for a number of years before they actually come to people's attention, and people say, wow, where did they come from? So yeah, be willing to take that step, and I think be willing to fail in some respects. That's how you're going to learn and how your product and your services are going to get better.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today for the first chat. I'm going to stop the recording in a second. Just students, when you take a look at this, all of their contact info and their websites are on the screen, and we encourage you to reach out to them. If you have any questions, always reach out to us, and we can help get you in touch with them as well. But thank you all so much.